This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. An unlikely friendship begins in the Paramount Plus original movie Little Wing, starring Brooklyn Prince with Kelly Riley and Brian Cox. Reeling from her parents' divorce, Caitlin steals a valuable bird to save her home, but instead forms a bond with the owner, leading to a new outlook on life. Little Wing, now streaming exclusively on Paramount Plus. Head to ParamountPlus.com to try it free. Rated PG-13.
This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to this edition of There Can Only Be One, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Are you ready to dance? Are you ready to get in a good mood? Because we have an episode that's going to guaranteed put you in a good mood. Because we are talking about the Interrupters. And here to join me for this one, and I know he's been waiting for this one, Brian Colburn from My Weekly Mixtape, also part of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Brian, welcome back to the show. How are you, man?
I am doing great, dude. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I am extremely excited to dive into the Interrupters catalog tonight. They've been one of my favorites for the last decade.
Okay, so we've gone back and forth talking about the Interrupters for quite a while now, and you finally got a chance to go and see them live and whatnot. So Interrupters on disc versus Interrupters live, how much did it change your perception of the music?
I loved their music before seeing them live. Seeing them live amplified my love of the band tenfold. And it also helped that I had my wife and kids with me, and my youngest knows pretty much every word to every single Interrupters song there is. My oldest is into them as well, even though she's in high school and is listening to whatever is popular. She has a spot for the Interrupters. My wife and I love them. So being able to sing these songs together as a whole family and with the band and with all the people in attendance at the Stone Pony was absolutely amazing. And it's going to be happening again this May because the Interrupters are touring as the opening act for Sum 41's final tour. And I'll be back at the Stone Pony with the family in tow to rock out with them once again.
Oh, that is awesome. And listeners, if you have not had a chance to go see the Interrupters live, what the hell are you waiting for? I mean, I get you're waiting for the band to come to your town, but they are absolutely worth traveling for, guaranteed. Now, on this show, it should be known that normally we have a 5-album limit for artists that we cover on the show, because otherwise it'd be a real short show. Otherwise, we'd just do it on spin, shuffle, skip. But we found a loophole. And because
I love loopholes.
Right? And it's my show and I get to make the rules, damn it. So here's what we're going to do. We are about to talk about 5 albums. The 4 albums by the Interrupters. And we're also going to be talking about Amy Allen's solo album, A Little Happiness. Now, that being said, I'm going to let you know what we're not covering. And I know at one point I'm going to hear a bunch of boos through the speaker because remember, I can hear you guys as well as you can hear me. So if you boo, I know. Okay. Boo. We're not boo. We're not covering any live albums. We're also not going to be doing any soundtrack songs that were done by Amy. So her version of Cooties on the Hairspray soundtrack, we're not going to be doing that. Yeah. We're not going to be doing Revolution, which was the theme song to the Birds of Prey TV show. We're also not going to be doing anything off of the unreleased I'd Start a Revolution If I Could Get Up in the Morning album. And we're also not going to be touching the Scott and Amy album Sitting in a Tree, which she did before joining the Interrupters because, well, I can't find it. But if you have heard those songs, it's her and Scott Russo from An Unwritten Law. The songs are pretty darn good. But here's where you're going to hear the boo. We're not doing anything that wasn't released on a studio album, which means we are not including their cover of Billie Eilish's Bad Guy. All right, let's hear it. Let's hear the booze.
Ooh.
So even though that song was on their Live in Tokyo album, it does not qualify for this podcast. Although I will admit, and I know you have said this on your show as well, Brian, that Bad Guy is really an Interrupters song that Billie Eilish just covered.
Honestly, the Interrupters made Bad Guy. I loved the original by Billie Eilish. The first time I heard the Interrupters version, I'm like, nope, this is the definitive version. And that's no disrespect to Billie Eilish. Just having that extra ska vibe to the song, it was absolutely perfect. Whereas the other one I enjoyed a lot, but the Interrupters version is perfection. And I'll say this much. I know we don't cover live albums on here, but if you want a taste of what you'll get at an Interrupters live show, the Live in Tokyo album is a perfect start. And you can also watch on YouTube the This Is My Family documentary, which includes almost all of the live songs from that album in video form, interspersed with footage of the band, interviews, kind of documentary format. Really awesome way to learn more about the band if you're new to them.
Oh yeah, like absolutely go deep dive as much as you can. But it's time to start this journey on July 21st, 2009, and the release of A Little Happiness, the Amy Allen solo album. From this album, On Vacation was released as a single and hit number 49 on the Billboard Hot AC charts. And Calling the Maker was featured in the game Tap Tap Revenge 3, released for iOS. So it did get a lot of attention, just unfortunately didn't, really hit the charts. So Brian, off of A Little Happiness, what did you go with?
This is a tough one. This is an interesting album, especially because we're starting with it for the Interrupters, because you do hear where the Interrupters will come from musically on this album. There is a reggae feel to the album, but it's not punk, ska, reggae mixed. It's more of a reggae meets pop meets jazz, if I actually throw that out there. Her voice is a lot smoother on this album, less gruff to fit with the power that the Interrupters bring. So this is a more chill, end of the night, I don't want to say lay low, but a chill end of the night kind of relax album to put on. And it's got a totally unique vibe, different than the stuff in the Interrupters, but you could hear where that love came from. And I'm a big cover fan. It's not my pick, but I got to give a shout out to her cover of Sublime's Santeria, done on a ukulele with her. Mm-hmm. And it's a really unique arrangement. It's great. Although the song I'm choosing is the opening track, Change in Weather. This album, she toured as an opener for Sugar Ray. When you listen to Change in Weather, you could hear why that was an absolutely perfect pick. Later era Sugar Ray. I'm not talking Lemonades and Brownies, which is a really heavy album, and that's a total sidebar, but most people don't even know that album exists unless they're big into Sugar Ray. Sugar Ray opened for Korn on one of their first tours. So they used to be heavy and then they kind of pivoted after Fly became such a hit. But I digress. Change in Weather is got a perfect vibe to it. To me, it's the closest thing on A Little Happiness that could bring us to the Interrupters.
I'm not going to lie. I almost tried a little experiment because there are a lot of songs on here where like the guitar and the ukulele playing kind of felt almost like a ska rhythm to them. And I was wondering, and I'm going to try this a little bit later, is if you take the album on Spotify and play it at like 1.2 or 1.5 speed to see if it feels like an acoustic ska album because of the up to tempo. There are a lot of great songs here. First of all, we need to address the elephant in the room. Sugar Ray opening for Korn. How did they survive that?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I did not know that.
Lemonade and Brownies is a heavy ass album. If you go back and listen to it, Rhyme Stealer, Meme Machine, 10 Seconds Down.
I was going to say 10 Seconds Down. That's a hard hitting one.
That first album was very much nu metal heavy. The second album had some of that, but then when Fly broke, they I would have done this. They followed the money train. Let's be honest. You got to pay your bills, and Fly was such a smash. Then you get Every Morning, and then it just keeps going from there. But if you want to hear a total 180, Lemonade and Brownies by Sugar Ray is a 180 from anything that you think you know by them from the hits.
Oh, yeah, no. Mean Machine was a great, great song. And I remember the video getting played a lot on Much Music. So I'm just trying to picture, you know how sometimes you take a look at posters from like old concerts and sit there and say, oh, wow, they toured with them and they toured with them. And then you could see Korn with opener Sugar Ray. It's like, how does that happen? And if you don't know that album exists, it's there.
Yep, 100%.
So off of this album, I ended up going with Silence and Violence. And
nice.
I think mainly because, a lot of the songs, and yes, I agree with you on the Santeria cover, it is very, very cool and very chill. But this one, I kind of like the darker, more rich texture that you got out of this. Like a lot of the songs, yes, had a very similar chill ukulele type vibe to it. This song really stood out, I think, by being so different from the rest. And, musically and sonically, it's exactly what I was kind of hoping to hear off of this.
Agreed. And like I said at the front, starting with this album might throw people for a loop, because if they go and listen to this song first, it might give them a different vibe of the Interrupters. But when you listen to all of the Interrupters albums in their entirety, from Take Back the Power on their self-titled all the way through Alien at the end of 2022's In the Wild, you'll hear elements of A Little Happiness in that mix.
It also needs to be pointed out, before we actually get to the first Interrupters album, Amy Allen also used to do a little bit of acting and appeared on 4 episodes of The Bold and the Beautiful, but is also in the movie Replicate. And I took a look at it, and yes, Replicate qualifies for It's Not That Bad. So somewhere down the road, we may be talking about Amy Allen as an actress as well as a singer.
Awesome.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
But now we get to the debut album of the Interrupters, and the band, of course, is Amy and the 3 Bavona brothers, Kevin, Justin, and Jesse. The album was released August 5th, 2014 on Hellcat Epitaph Records and peaked at number 14 on the Billboard Heatseekers album charts. Canadians have heard music off of this album quite a bit, because just this year, Sports Network TSN actually used Take Back the Power for their IIHF World Junior Championship promo. So that song got played a lot at the beginning of the year. Some of the shoutouts that actually came in for this one, the So Wizard podcast picked Take Back the Power off of this one. Thank you so much for your shoutouts there. So off of the Interrupters' self-titled debut album, what'd you go with?
Well, what I'm going to do is talk about, because again, this is the first time I'm getting to talk Interrupters here. So I want people listening to kind of have a great place to start. And then I will pick the song that I chose as my only one. And their 2014 self-titled album has so much going on. It's so great. Judge Not, nice two-tone ska song. This Is the New Sound. You get that real two-tone vibe. Family with Tim Armstrong from Rancid. Big live staple for them. Again, I talked about the This Is My Family documentary. It comes from this song. A Friend Like Me, one of my youngest's absolute favorites. And Last Call. Those are all amazing songs. However, the first time we saw them at the Stone Pony, the song they opened with, again, I'm a sucker for opening songs. It's also the opening song on the album. And I promise I won't do this all night, but I might do it again. I don't know yet. Take Back the Power. When she walked down stage and started singing that, and I got to watch my daughters jump up and I could see their faces light up and they started singing along at the top of their lungs. It's weird. Take Back the Power is a fun pop punk song that really gets you going and gets the energy going. Here I am watching my kids sing along with it, and I'm welling up as I'm enjoying the show. It's the weirdest experience because people are probably looking at me like, this dude's welling up during a pop punk song. What's his problem? But seeing my 10-year-old with this elated live concert joy and my 15-year-old just singing along like it was, nobody's business, it meant so much to me. And Take Back the Power as a father of two girls is a song that brings, it's right on the nose, but it empowers lyrically. And that's not something you get in a lot of modern music. A lot of modern music puts down people and is self-deprecating. And this one truly is empowering. And to see your kids singing along to What's Your Plan for Tomorrow? Are you a leader or will you follow? Are you a fighter or will you cower? It's our time to take back the power. The hair on my arms is standing up. It's a pop punk song and I'm getting emotional about it, but I absolutely love this track.
I'm glad you mentioned the positivity in the lyrics and the empowerment in the lyrics, because one of the songs that wasn't my pick, but was definitely on my radar, was Easy on You. And I think there's a lot to be said about a song like that, where you're sitting there, you're bopping, and then all of a sudden you pick up on the lyrics and it's like, yeah, I am going too hard on myself. I need to go a little bit easier on myself. I need to enjoy things. I need to, thank you, interrupters, for reminding me to chill out a little bit here. Lyrically, they do have a lot of really upbeat messaging. And I think that you're right. It's tonic on the radio when you hear it. You do want to hear a positive message. I also put down as a very close second pick for this one, the Metro, because if any song on this album has what I like to call the face scrunching guitar lick, like the kind that you hear and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, that's good. And you start to make like the nasty looking guitar faces as you're listening to it. Yeah, completely, right? The Metro is it's such a stank face song, like that. It's in the best possible of ways, but I couldn't not pick Take Back the Power. I'm completely in agreement with you on that one. It is anthemic, and I heard a lot of it over the holidays there and during the World Junior Championships, and it's a great song for it too. Like, absolutely. We now move on to Say It Out Loud, released June 24th, 2016. The album hit number 25 on the US indie charts, number 16 on the Australian Hit Seekers charts, and number 7 on the Billboard Heat Seekers charts. There were 3 singles off of this one, however, none of them actually charted. Bunch of shout outs on your socials on this one. Lee Sports Fan, Barry McPhee, and Slanting Flying picked She Got Arrested. Tarks Marks 44 picked On a Turntable, and the So Wizard podcast picked Babylon. So off of Say It Out Loud, what's your pick?
Well, I want to agree. She Got Arrested, monster song. Babylon, again, that two-tone is just so perfect. On a Turntable was really, really close to being my number one pick. I love that song so damn much. And I also want to give a shout out to 2 other tracks, Phantom City, which featured Tim Timebomb, and Jenny Drinks, which does come up in and out of live sets every now and then. Not as much as it was when the album first came out, but it's still a great tune. But for the 3rd time in a row, I swear to God, it's not a sickness. But I'm going with the album opener, By My Side, because I have a video on my phone that I spun around during this song, and it's my wife, myself, and my 2 girls looking right into the camera, screaming along with the band behind us. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. But if I do die, I know you'll be by my side. And we're all kind of got our arms around each other. Again, it's that positivity. And there were people that were in the crowd with us singing to each other, to total strangers, because it felt like the crowd was one big, dare I use the word because it's their song, one big family for that 1 hour. And to me, that's just that's something you don't see very often. And I see it a lot more prevalent, believe it or not, in ska punk shows and metal shows more than you would versus country concerts, hip hop concerts, and I'd say more modern rock. I think people just go enjoy the band on their own. But for some reason, in ska, punk, and metal, for the hour or 90 minutes the band is playing, it feels like a community. And a song like this just screams to that.
I think you also kind of get that feeling too with when you have bands like this that came up like not being thrust out onto the big stages and, getting to open for the big tours and whatnot. I remember seeing the Interrupters when they were here playing at wasn't the Government, but it was the Docks, Rebel now, I think it's called. And they were talking about like the first time they were up in this area and they played this little club called the Atria in Oshawa, which, Pop Evil has actually called the Dirty Schwa. And that tells you exactly what you need to know. But the thing is, a band like that toured those small clubs and came up through the ranks and basically built their reputation on the road. So the ones that are with them, obviously at this point, because at this point, the big album hasn't released yet, but the ones that are with them at this point are the ones that have been there through the small clubs for the long run. And it becomes a bit of a family because you do appreciate those people. For me, of all the songs that have been mentioned so far, none of them are the one that I've picked.
Whoa, okay. All right.
I'm going deeper here. I'm going with something that I am not, media sensation.
All right, good tune.
One of those things where it's like the harmonies with the Interrupters, like really it builds so much. Like when you get the gang vocals going, it cannot be beat. And media sensation, off of all the songs off this album, and I will admit that this is the album that had maybe not the catchiest songs for me, but media sensation could have fit on any album and be put in any set list, and I'd be a happy camper.
Amen. Yeah, completely love that tune.
Moving on to June 29th, 2018, and Fight the Good Fight. This is that big album that really broke them. The album hit number 141 on the Billboard 200 and number 2 on the US indie charts. There were 2 singles off of this one. She's Kerosene, of course, being the big hit. Hit number 4 on the US alternative charts and number 1 on the Canadian alternative 30 charts. So yay us. 7 rock lists picked She's Kerosene. Slanting Flying went with Leap of Faith. Tarks Marks 44 went with Gave You Everything. And the So Wizard podcast picked Got Each Other. So off of Fight the Good Fight, I'm curious now what your pick is.
Well, I got to go with 5 songs first. And for once, for the first time, I'm not going to go with an album opener. However, Title Holder is an amazing album opener. Again, with a wonderful, positive message. I mean, dude, if you see your kids singing along to a song, fight like a title holder, stand like a champion, live like a warrior, and never let them break you down. Lyrics like that scream positivity. It makes you feel good about yourself. It makes you empowered. Just like Take Back the Power. So I got to give a shout out again to the lyrics because they really hit home. And they are truly a family band. As you mentioned, the brothers Bavona, Amy is married to Kevin. So this is truly, it's not just a clever, this is my family name. They are conceivably a family band and easily the best family band of the 2010s as far as I'm concerned. But I digress. Songs like Leap of Faith, again, that two-tone ska is just so perfect. But then there's other live staples. One that was mentioned, Gave You Everything. Love that tune. That's kind of like your Joan Jett aggressive power punk, and I love that. Broken World is a sing-along like no other that just makes you want to put your arm around the person next to you and just sing together, and I love that. And Not Personal is another jam, but the song they closed with when I saw them with the girls and shot confetti into the crowd and started raining Interrupters beach ball balloons that my daughter got her hands on one, seeing the look on their faces. I have it on video, and anytime I'm having a bad day, I pull it up and it makes my day a little better. And it's She's Kerosene. I love it. It's their biggest hit for a reason.
Oh yeah, no, that song is, not just like a good ska song. It's not just a good punk song. It's just a good song, period. And, able to kind of hit no matter what kind of radio station is playing anything with a guitar. Like, it really does hit so many different genres and so many different ears to be able to do that. And I will say that, yes, live, it kills. For me, however, if I ever had the chance to play an Interrupter song live, it would want to be Gave You Everything. Absolutely love this song. And I think the key thing is that this song, to me, actually, I think fares better live. Hear me out on this one. If you go to YouTube and you look up the Interrupters live in the K-Pit, it's a tiny dive bar show from a little London dive bar called Blondie's. And everything is absolutely cramped in there. Like, just cramped. Gave You Everything is like in the middle of that set. And it slays. I mean, when I saw them, it was a decent sized stage, but I could just imagine what the Interrupters would be like in a small little dive bar playing some of those songs. Like, you can just imagine the walls would be sweating with how packed and how excited everyone would be.
And I also want to add to Gave You Everything, as I was listening to a lot of Interrupters music today, when I picked up my youngest, I was going through some songs as well, and Gave You Everything came up, but it was the acoustic version that they released separately as a single. Again, that version really helps you dive into the lyrical nature of the song. They slow it down, because my daughter sitting next to me, she had never heard the acoustic version. And when it came on, she started singing along with it, but looking at me like, how do I know the words to this? And I said, you know what you're singing? She goes, isn't it supposed to be faster and heavier? I said, yeah, this is a slowed down acoustic version. She goes, ooh, this is fun in a different way. So if you love Gave You Everything, check out the acoustic version, because it is kind of reimagined, and it shows the breadth of their talent to be able to take a song in different directions.
I think the cool thing too is if you go back to the A Little Happiness album from Amy that she put out before all of this, you can kind of feel where she was going as far as songwriting goes and how that translates to the Interrupters. So it's almost like you're hearing, half of the genesis of the songwriting from that album, albeit in an acoustic setting. And I think it works very well.
Completely agree.
We now get to the end of our journey with In the Wild, released August 2nd, 2022. The album hit number 145 on the Billboard 200 and number 2 in the US indie charts. There were 3 singles off of this one. In the Mirror charted the highest, hit number 19 on the US alternative charts and number 3 on the Canadian alternative 30 charts. David Owens, Slanting Flying, and the So Wizard podcast went with Raised by Wolves, and Tarks Marks 44 went with In the Mirror. So off of this one, the last song before we get to our final one, what have you got?
Well, I've done it with every album, so I got to give you my 5 first. Completely agree with Raised by Wolves. Great tune. And if you get the deluxe edition, which you can get on streaming, there's a reimagined acoustic version once again. So throw that out there. Kiss the Ground gives you this nice deep reggae vibe with the extra effects on her vocals. It's just a vibe. Jailbird is a real punk rocker. I really like that one. Let 'Em Go is another one that really stands out. And on the deluxe version only, their cover of Joe Strummer's Get Down Moses is absolute. It's the chef's kiss. It's great. However, my 10-year-old at dinner tonight told me, Dad, there's only one song that you can go with on In the Wild. So as a shout out to my youngest, because it's one of her favorites, I am going to go with In the Mirror.
That's such a good song. And I love the fact that you get these bands that, you can introduce your kids to, and it's perfectly fine for them. And you kind of, those are those moments where it's like you kind of almost pass on your musical likes and preferences onto them. And the minute you see them latch on to something, it's like, they understand, they get it, and it's all good. I actually brought my youngest out to go see Papa Roach for the first time this last summer. His favorite band of all time. We were right on this the middle railing there, where there's the alleyway for the cables to go up, and of course Jacoby Shaddix would always run off the stage and run around. So he got his hand out, got a high five from Jacoby Shaddix, and I don't think he's washed his hand since then. So kind of gross, but kind of cool, but kind of gross. It's all good. For me, I almost went with Alien, which is such a hauntingly beautiful song. But of course, I listened to the deluxe edition, and I'm going to go with the acoustic version of Raised by Wolves. I think the acoustic version hits a lot harder than the regular album version. And again, it's because one of those things where acoustically, when these songs are probably written, and you have to think that the way a lot of them translate well, many of them are probably written acoustically before they actually go into the studio and, plug in to record them. I would love to see the Interrupters do not necessarily a best of, but maybe an unplugged, like a live unplugged CD and DVD. I think that would be absolutely killer. And, listening to Raised by Wolves, the acoustic version, tells you everything you need to know about how good that's going to sound.
Couldn't agree more. And if they hear this episode and decide to do that, I would like to request that you and I are sitting front row for bringing the idea to the table, because you brought the idea, and I'll totally I'll concede that. But I'm jumping in on this one. I got to be there. So
if they send 2 tickets, I'll bring you. It's all good.
All right, we'll make that happen. Love it.
All right, so now it has come time. So Brian, remind our listeners what songs you picked off of these 5 albums, and then if there can only be one, what song is it going to be?
All right, from 2009's A Little Happiness, Amy Allen's solo album, I went with Changin' Weather. From 2014's The Interrupters, I went with Take Back the Power. From 2016's Say It Out Loud, I went with By My Side. From 2018's Fight the Good Fight, I went with She's Kerosene. And from 2022's In the Wild, I went with In the Mirror. I am so torn between 2 songs here. And the only reason I'm choosing one over the other is I'm thinking to myself, if someone hasn't heard The Interrupters, which of the songs that I've chosen tonight gives the best overall representation of what you're going to get by listening to the Interrupters catalog from start to finish? And I feel like She's Kerosene tells that story because it's the perfect balance of the ska punk sound. Although Take Back the Power is so close underneath it that as soon as I finish this sentence, I might change my mind. I love both of those songs so much. And believe it or not, it was the show opener and show closer. And they are images, seeing my kids singing these songs so burned into my brain that it was so hard to pick between the two. But I think for our listeners out there, She's Kerosene might give the best overall impression of who the Interrupters are as a band, at least in my humble opinion.
See, this is one of the shortest episodes you and I have done together, but I get the feeling this is probably the hardest one for you to pick literally only one song off of the albums.
I could honestly, I had to give 5 songs an album for the Interrupters because I felt like we weren't giving them their just due. It was so tough when you're dealing with a band like Metallica, which we've done, and Tom Petty, and there's this whole discography. You feel like you can kind of let some songs go by the wayside and have these conversations. But when you have such a tight catalog like this, and it's literally just time. They've only released their first album in 2014. So they've been around a decade and they've put out 4 albums every 2.5 years on average. It is such a strong catalog so far that the future just looks so bright for this group. And I think with groups like No Doubt coming back at Coachella this year, I feel like that's going to shine more light on the Interrupters, because No Doubt pops up every now and then for a little bit and then they go away because Gwen's got television or stuff. I'll just say it. I like the Interrupters more than No Doubt. I think they bring a lot more of what I prefer in music. There is that pop element that is woven through the Interrupters sound, but to me, it feels much more organic and authentic to the ska punk sound. and they weave so effortlessly between the ska side to the punk side and then bringing it together that they're one of the best on the scene right now.
I mean, if you were to tell me that somewhere down the road, you might have a No Doubt tour with the Interrupters, and, you know, I would probably throw in a band like Against the Current, because I think that's a band that doesn't get enough attention and is very, very good, although they're a bit more on the Paramore side of sound, but would still, I think, fit in with all of that. But yeah, if you were to tell me that No Doubt and the Interrupters could maybe someday tour together, tell me that tour wouldn't sell out.
Oh, it would be sold out everywhere. But let me also say, the Interrupters have been put on so many incredible bills. Like, I'm going to see them this summer with Sum 41. We saw them a few years ago with Flogging Molly. They toured with Frank Turner. They toured with the Dropkick Murphys. Now, these are all different subsegments of the punk genre, and they're fitting in every single one because they're so unique and they stand out so much, and they have such a tight, honed-in sound. It's got that rancid dirt to it. And when I say dirt, I hope you get what I mean. Rancid has that dirty punk sound, but with that ska sound that it's not necessarily the English beat style of two-tone ska, but it brings in this little bit more amplified, a little bit more grunge, a little bit more overdrive on the guitar to give it that more rock ska sound. And I think that's what I gravitate so much to, because, again, you could be dancing one song, but then they could take it down to a groove that you just get locked into, and they could really take you on a musical journey in one of their sets. And if you listen from Take Back the Power all the way through Alien, just through their 4 albums, no love outside of A Little Happiness. But I would say start at Take Back the Power from 2014's The Interrupters, go all the way through 2022's In the Wild, Aliens, and there's Alien, and then there's extra tracks if you get the deluxe version. And then at the end, as a nightcap, pop in A Little Happiness, and the evening, you're going to have an amazing night of music.
And I will say too, that A Little Happiness, that is perfect. Sit outside, backyard, campfire, warm, nice drink that keeps you warm. Not a warm drink, but a drink that keeps you warm, if you know what I'm talking about. It's a phenomenal chill album. Okay, so for my picks, off of A Little Happiness, I went with Silence and Violence. From the Interrupters' self-titled album, I went with Take Back the Power. Off of Say It Out Loud, I went with Media Sensation. From Fight the Good Fight, I went with Gave You Everything. And from In the Wild, I went with Raised by Wolves, the acoustic version off of the deluxe edition of the album. I didn't have to really think about this one at all. At all. The minute we talked about doing this episode, I knew exactly what my only one pick would be, and that's Gave You Everything. Anytime I listen to a song and I instantly think, I need that in my own set list. I want to play this live. This is a song that I would love to play in front of a crowd. There's a reason why, because it resonates with me. It's a song that makes me want to play it, and maybe one day, but we'll have to see. But if I ever get the chance to, I'm playing that damn song. Brian, thank you so much for this. Now, before we go, please remind our listeners where they can find the podcast and where they can find you out there on the interwebs.
By all means, you can find My Weekly Mixtape at myweeklymixtape.com or at My Weekly Mixtape on all the social media haunts. The show is available through the Pantheon Podcast Network that we're both so lucky to be a part of, as well as on all of the podcast providers, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, wherever you listen to podcasts. I like to keep the conversation fun and exciting like Jason does here on There Can Only Be One. So if you like the vibe here, hopefully you enjoy the vibe at My Weekly Mixtape as well. And at some point, we might have to do an Interrupters episode of My Weekly Mixtape.
Oh, one day. Or even just a ska punk episode. But I know you have done a ska episode before, and there are a bunch of different genres that are covered on the show and a ton of phenomenal interviews. So if you do like to listen to in-depth discussions about music, you need to go listen to My Weekly Mixtape, whether it be with other podcasters or with the artists themselves. Make sure you go subscribe, give the 5 stars, and give them a listen. Brian, thank you so much. Until next time, listeners, you guys know the drill. If there is an artist that you want us to cover, Hit us up on social media at OnlyOneCast or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, check out our new Coming Soon page where you can see some of the episodes that we are currently putting together. We want to hear your chime-ins. Just like everyone who chimed in on this episode, let us know your picks. We want to read them and give you shout-outs in the show. And while you're there, make sure you check out all the other shows. Until next time, he's Brian, I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is There Can Only Be One on the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.